This is the story of Antoinette Frank. When we think about police officers, think of safety, appropriate enforcement, and a group that is vital to the communities around the world, overall protectors making sure that everything is okay in our lives. So how did the good cops and bad cops become intertwined, questioning the morality of every officer in which we encounter today? Well, there's always a bad apple, and Antoinette was no exception. It all started in 1993 when Antoinette was hired by the New Orleans Police Department. Though she was missing a few requirements including a favorable psychiatric evaluation, they still extended an offer of employment. Maybe they needed more officers due to a high turnover rate, but their desperation would eventually cost more than anyone had bargained for. Moreover, she was considered to be shy and surprisingly not fully aware of the importance of her position. Shortly after working for the department, she responded to a call for a shooting in her area, where she met Roger Lacaze, a well-known drug dealer who eventually became her romantic partner. She loved the thrill of being in love with a bad boy. When they were together, all logic disappeared and the devil took the initiative. She was blinded by his charm, the fast life, and sexual rendezvous, ultimately influencing her bad decision-making and feeling like she could play by her own rules. But Antoinette was on a path of destruction, allowing her emotions to motivate an act of ultimate betrayal. Roger became her partner in crime, arriving to calls with Antoinette pretending to be a trainee, a part of the NOPD. People in the community witnessed Roger driving her squad car on several occasions. Breaking the rules was at an all-time high, but the pair continued their reckless behavior. Until one day in particular, the unveiling of who Antoinette Frank really was, inside would come to the surface quicker than she anticipated. Her greed and abuse of authority came to the forefront, but she would go on to get away with her schemes for a little while longer. In order to make ends meet, Antoinette decided to pick up a second job working security with her colleague, Officer Ronald Williams, at a family-owned Vietnamese restaurant. The trouble started with Antoinette getting upset with him over his rate of pay. Apparently, she wasn't making enough money, so she took her frustration out on Ronald, creating a hostile work environment. Nevertheless, her attempts to intimidate him failed as he continued working there against her wishes, even though she was purposely trying to make his life harder. She walked around the place like she owned it, often stopping in at random times requesting free food for her and her boyfriend Roger. It was a particular day that raised concern and finally sparked suspicion. March 4, 1995, the couple stopped in on 3 separate occasions. When one of the workers noticed that the keys to the restaurant were missing, because of this, hid the money. Antoinette slowly opened the door using the stolen key and immediately headed for the kitchen. She had one thing on her mind, and that was money. Other workers hid in another part of the restaurant, turning off the lights. Officer Ronald heard the commotion, causing him to go towards the kitchen, but Roger noticed this and fired a shot. When he fell, Roger came closer to continue shooting him in his head and back. Meanwhile, Antoinette found 2 workers, Quyon and Ha. They were sweeping the floors and cleaning, preparing to leave for the night. She became furious as the workers told her that they didn't know where the owners kept the money. Still, she continued ransacking the place before pistol whipping 17-year-old Quyon to scare him for more information. Once Antoinette found the money inside of the microwave, she shot Ha 3 times before turning to her brother Quyon, firing 6 fatal shots. As witnesses heard the gunshots, they contacted the authorities. However, Antoinette had yet another trick up her sleeve. Moving as quickly as she could, she left out, heading towards an empty police cruiser in order to be the first person to respond to the call on her radio. It was a clever move until the owner realized that she had only left just to return, pretending as if she was just a responding officer in the area taking the call. The jig was up, and the survivors were able to identify Antoinette and her boyfriend Roger to other responding police officers. Throughout the investigation, it was revealed that her motive was to seek revenge after she found out that Ronald was getting paid more than her to work security for the same restaurant. Unfortunately, greed and evil intentions motivated these crimes. Detective Eddie Rance, who was a part of the investigation, described Antoinette to be a very cold-hearted person. Although she was caught red-handed, eventually, she confessed to the murders, and on October 20, 1995, Antoinette Frank was sentenced to death. She's currently serving time at Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women where she awaits execution.